How's it going, everyone? And welcome back to BryceBits, where you can get a little bit of wisdom. My name is Bryce Newberger. I'm a pastoral mentor with side-by-side counseling based in Arizona. And let's dive on in. This one should be interesting. Am I the a-hole for wanting to break up with my husband? It's weird to say break up with your husband. Like, do you mean divorce? So wanting to break up with my husband after he called our autistic son a burden and said he wants to give him up for adoption. That is rough. That's not okay, sir. That's not okay, sir. I, 30 female, have been married to my husband, 32 male, for 5 years. We've had our share of problems like any couple, but this one's really shaken me to my core. We have a son, 5 months. That's young. That's really young. Who was diagnosed with autism about 2 years ago. Oh, 5 male. 5-year-old male. Okay. I thought I was like, what already? All right. 2 years ago. So when he was 3. Of course, it hasn't been easy. Yeah. Autism's rough. I don't have any autistic kids. I do have a son with type 1 diabetes, which is a lot. It's a lot. It robs me of my sleep. It takes a lot of money and time and energy, and it's scary. But I've had friends who have autistic kids as well, and yeah, it's difficult. It's very difficult. Of course, it hasn't been easy, but I love him with all my heart. Yep. He's sweet. Yep. And despite the challenges, I could never imagine life without him. Good for you, Mom. Yeah, good for you. All right. Lately, my husband has been acting different. He's more distant. He's checked out emotionally. I chalked it up to stress from work, maybe just that we're both overwhelmed trying to balance everything. But then I overheard something that I can't unhear. He was talking to a couple of his friends, and they were discussing kids, parenting, etc. One of his friends made some offhand comment about how hard parenting is, and that's when my husband just let loose. All right. So one thing I want to keep in mind is that this conversation was not meant for you, right? So that's important to know. This conversation was not meant for you. As someone who can meet with people and they have the freedom to say whatever they want with me, a very important part of getting counseling, therapy, mentorship, anything like that, is that you have someone you trust where you can say the unsayable. And sometimes when I'm in my own counseling sessions and I'm the client, there are things that I say to my therapist that I would never say to another human being ever. And that's because we need to process the dark thoughts, right? Carl Jung says, what you resist persists. So there's time to drag out some of those ugly thoughts. And man, I can have all sorts of thoughts. They can be literally murderous sometimes. So human beings are capable of a lot of garbage. So one, I want to point out, this conversation was not meant for you. Let's see. Let's read on, right? I don't know what it said. Maybe I'm going to really regret saying that in a second. He started saying how our son is too much to handle, that he feels like he's a burden. He even mentioned that sometimes he wishes he could give him up for adoption. Like, what? Yeah. Okay. It's not good. This is not good things to say. I couldn't believe it. At first, I thought maybe he was just frustrated and saying things out of anger or stress. So I want to highlight that. There are people who can feel like saying, like they need to express the unsayable, right? We're role playing here. I'm facing bankruptcy. I just wish I could rob a bank, right? I'm not really going to rob a bank. I don't want to rob a bank. But as long as you drive past a bank and you're like, I'm pretty poor. And there's a lot of money in there. Like I need to think about that dark thought, right? So, you could have someone terrible in your life who's really making your life a living hell. And you could think, man, things would be simpler if that person were not alive, right? And that's not something you should post on Facebook or Instagram or go telling your friends. But you might need a safe place to express that thought, because what we resist persists. It's very true. But he kept going. He wasn't just venting. He said that he missed the freedom we had before becoming parents. Well, okay, hold on. I'm not giving this guy a free pass. I'm not. But within the context of him venting, I want to put on the venting glasses first and see if he's just venting. He missed the freedom we had before becoming parents. That's fair. I have my 3 boys, and I would not trade them for the world, right? They are worth every scar that I've ever gotten, right? They are worth it. They are worth it. They are worth it. But there was freedom. And if I didn't have my 3 boys, I would move back to Oklahoma. I hate the heat of Arizona. I miss my brothers. I miss my family who are stuck in Oklahoma as well for their own reasons. But I'm gladly here for my kids. But sometimes that sorrow, the part of me that was free, a young free, adult doing what he wants, he needs to be heard sometimes and given room to express his grievance so that we can address it, right? And this is where you'd get to internal family. That's more of on the internal family system style of therapy. And he thinks it would be better for everyone if we weren't stuck with this life. Okay. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. My ex-wife, when we were getting a divorce, she was really struggling with some of these thoughts. And, she was saying, we were married. We'd been married for 10 years. We had 3 kids. We'd been pregnant 5 times. We lost 2 of the kids. And so there was a lot of grief there. And she started to express, we were dating since high school. We went from being high school lovers to getting engaged, getting married. And she's like, I missed that I didn't get to party and go crazy in college. And she needed to be heard that, hey, missing that kind of carefree, fun party cycle, that's a reasonable thought, and I want to hear it. But also, I promise you, although you can't live both realities, our kids are better. Our married life is better. I promise you that you did make the right decision to marry me and have kids. That it sucks you missed the parties, but my new wife, so we ended up getting divorced really from a lot of those thoughts. But my new wife, she got that party time. She got that freedom. And she's like, it sucked. She's like, I would have given anything to be in a relationship. That's part of why our new marriage can grow from the health, where she's like, that party life, your ex is going to see it's not all it's cracked up to be. So he needs to be heard. He needs to be heard when he says better for everyone if we weren't stuck in this life. What I want to say is, if you tell him that he can never express his frustration, then one day he might just be gone, right? Because he needs to let these thoughts out. They need to be heard. And sometimes when you say something this ugly, and this is ugly, this is ugly, ugly, ugly. This is ugly. That's why therapy is great, because you can say ugly stuff. And sometimes when you say something ugly, you're like, oh, what did I just say? What came out of my mouth? But it's important, because otherwise it grows like a mold in the dark. And you need to get that out, and you need to clean it. You need to cleanse it. You need to acknowledge it. You need to drag it out into the light and say, okay, ugly, horrible thought. Let's look at you and let's deal with you. So, so far he's expressed some pretty ugly things, but, so I was absolutely crushed. Yeah, you would be, right? How could he talk about our son like that? Yeah, I would never give up on him. Not for anything. He's not a burden. So another thing to keep in mind, this conversation was not meant for you and you overheard it, but if your husband is expressing it in a way, so I have a men's group where it's just me and a bunch of dudes. We call it Whiskey Thursday, and every other Thursday, sometimes just once a month, we'll get together and we drink whiskey and we have a good time. And it's a time actually of a bunch of men just being vulnerable, talking about our wives, our kids, our lives, divorces we're processing, all of that kind of stuff. And it's a free place where every man can share what's on his heart. And honestly, I wish that every human being, not just men, I wish every woman, man could have that environment where sometimes when people say stuff, we're like, bro, what you just said was messed up. And they're like, yeah, it was. Yeah, it was messed up. But if your husband's expressing these things so, in such a cavalier nature where you can overhear it, right? It's not at a Whiskey Thursday. It's not at a poker night with the dudes. It is somewhere within earshot of you. Part of him might have wanted you to hear that. And this could be a cry for help. He's not a burden. He's a beautiful boy who just needs more understanding and patience. Absolutely. Amen. Yes. Hearing my husband say those things about him just shattered me inside. Yeah. Yep. They would. I get it. It's probably why he'd never say it to you, right? When I confronted him, he brushed it off. Okay. Data. Important data. saying I was overreacting, that he didn't really mean it. Okay. This is very, 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 very important. He brushed it off, saying I was overreacting and he didn't really mean it. Okay. Keep in mind, these are his words. These are his words and his thoughts. He gets to own them. All right. He gets to own them. So if I say that I'm so angry I could murder my boss, right? Which is not true at all. I love my boss. But if I'm so angry I could murder my boss, right? And then someone goes, dude, are you contemplating murder? No, dude, I was just venting. Like, I was angry about something. It's okay. I've been so angry that I could say I could murder a boss multiple times when I used to work in the corporate world, especially in upper management. But I would never kill my boss, right? So that he was just blowing off steam with his friends. Okay, but how can I not take that seriously? He's literally talking about abandoning our sons. These words weren't meant for you. These words were not meant for you, right? He's literally talking about, he didn't apologize. Well, that's a rough one. Okay, so we need to keep in mind, she wasn't meant to hear this. Maybe the husband was crying out for help, wanted her to hear it. I don't know. I don't know the situation, right? But if my wife sat in on a therapy session where I was complaining about her, which happens sometimes, and I told my wife when I married her, I said, hey, marrying you means I choose you. Some days you may be my worst enemy, and I will be, and you will be my least favorite person. That's part of marriage. Like you have those cycles. But my marrying you is a commitment to you saying that when you are not my favorite person, I will work through it and we'll stick together. And you don't always have to be my number one favorite person, right? Our relationship will survive me being frustrated with you, and hopefully will survive you being frustrated with me. That's the hope that and the commitment we're making to one another. I have a best friend. He was my best man at my wedding. Dude let me live with him when I was going through my divorce. Love him. I would die for him. I text him sometimes. I vent frustrations, right? If my wife picks up my phone and reads my text messages to him and I'm venting to him about something that she's done that frustrated me, that some of those are thoughts that I need to process. They're only half-baked thoughts. They're emotions in raw form and they need to be refined. If my wife picks up my phone and reads that, that wasn't meant for her. And she's going to get thoughts that were not refined, that are emotions that are parts of me that needed to be heard for a second, heard by someone, drug out into the light and challenged. And I have good friends. I have really good friends. My good friends do not encourage my bad thoughts. They challenge them. And they will tell me, hey, dude, let's work on that, right? Sometimes I think things that I shouldn't think, and my friends, my community, my support system saves me from that. My therapist saves me from that. But these thoughts need to be expressed and need to be dragged onto the light, so they're not resisted and thus persist. Okay, let's keep going. He's literally talking about, okay, but he's not literally talking about abandoning your son, like. Right. He was, it's a hard sentence structure, but he's not planning on leaving you guys or your son. He says he's just overwhelmed and feels like our son's autism is taking over our lives and that he doesn't know how much more he can take. But instead of working through it together, he's talking about running away from the problem. Okay. Can we acknowledge the sentence though? He said he's just overwhelmed and feels like our son's autism is taking over our lives. Okay. Is that where he stopped? Is that where his statement stopped? And that it doesn't know how much more he can take. Okay, my son's diabetes is difficult. Very, 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 very difficult. And there are times where I don't know how much more I can take. I don't. I have to dig deep, right? On the late nights, on the scary moments in the emergency room, right? It's an autoimmune disease, so he's had some other scary things pop up because he's immunocompromised. He's almost died one Christmas, from an ear infection that went up into his brain. So there are times where I don't know how much more I can take. So I need to dig deep, right? I need to suck it up and press on. So if he's really feeling this, how can I trust him to be there for our son in the long run? Oops. I forgot to. Okay. Okay. But instead of working through it together, he's talking about running away from the problem. Okay. So him talking about it is working through the problem, right? That's why therapy is known as talk therapy. Now, there's also somatic therapy. That's a whole other thing. But literally, psychotherapy is known as talk therapy. So he's not working on it. He's talking about it. Well, talking about it's working on it. If he's telling you he's overwhelmed, that needs to be heard. That needs to be held. That needs to be cherished. That he needs support. He needs support. You need support too, but he needs support. What he's doing here is he's asking for support. Not support to leave you, not support to walk out on you and your kid, not to give your kid up for adoption. He's overwhelmed. And the situation he's in can be overwhelming. Being a dad in this situation with a son with a disability can be overwhelming. I have been overwhelmed by my son's diabetes, right? I have been overwhelmed by the needles and the shots and the blood and the hospitals and the math, late night 3 a.m. math on his blood calculations, right? So he's saying he's just overwhelmed. There's no such thing as just overwhelmed, right? Here, let me grab something. This is Brené Brown's Atlas of the Heart. Great book. Overwhelmed means that in this book, she talks about how being overwhelmed means you are blown. You can do no more. You have nothing else to give. That's what she says overwhelmed means. If your husband is communicating that he is overwhelmed, then he needs support. And you can't always be that support because you're probably just as overwhelmed. So you guys need some outside help. You need some therapy. You need some counseling. Hopefully he's got a good support system. I love that he was processing with his friends. Don't take his friends from him. Don't take that processing. But what kind of friends does he have? Does he have friends that are going to kick him in the butt and keep him in gear? I need to get my butt kicked sometimes. I need some good men around me who, when I whine and complain, they're going to kick me in the butt and they're going to say, get back in the game, bro. You got this. Fourth quarter, keep going, dig deep. I have men in my life that I hope that I'm that for them when they're going through it. I'm telling them, dude, you got this. Keep going. Like dig deep, press on, don't give up. Your family needs you. So don't rob him of his support system to vent to his friends. Talking is literally part of therapy, talk therapy. Now I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I feel like I can't stay with someone who sees our child as a burden, but I also feel so torn because we're married. And I thought we'd always have each other's backs, especially when it comes to raising our child. But if he's really feeling like this, how can I trust him to be there for our son and me in the long run? Just because he feels like it doesn't mean he's going to abandon you. You have a right to your feelings. Right, that's my problem with this whole post. You have a right to your feelings. You have a right to be overwhelmed. You have a right to be frustrated. You have a right to have an intrusive thought about adoption or divorce or whatever. You have a right to those feelings. Then you need to process them. You don't have a right to give your son up for adoption, right? You don't have a right to abandon your family. You don't have that right. But you do have a right to feel. You can't tell someone that their feelings are illegal, that they can't feel murderous rage or lustful ambition, right? These thoughts come from somewhere, and you're not your thoughts, and largely you're not in control of your thoughts. You are your environment, the whole way it works, your body through outside forces, internal things going on, serves you up thoughts all the time. And you say no to the majority of your thoughts, right? But to feel some way, to think certain things, yeah, his thoughts make him look like a villain. They do. These are not thoughts that I would ever want. When I am so freaking tired, and it's the middle of the night for multiple nights in a row, and I have gone a whole week with not good sleep, and my son is going through something difficult, and we've been in the hospital, we've been dealing with his blood, we've been dealing with equipment problems with the insurance not sending us things for him, and I have those 3 a.m. thoughts of, I don't know how much more of this I can take. Like, I need a breath, I need a break. I don't want those thoughts on the internet. I don't want those thoughts served to my wife. I don't want those thoughts served to my son. I don't want those thoughts anywhere but between me and my counselor, right? Between me and my most trusted of allies and friends. And so I don't want to break up our family, but I also can't stay with someone who could even think about giving up our child. I love my son more than anything, and I will never allow that. Okay. So am I the a-hole for wanting to leave my husband? Should I be trying harder to work out to work this out, or is it too far gone? Okay, I'm going to be honest. I don't have a lot of hope for the comments here. I don't think the comments are going to be great on this one. I feel like everyone's going to dogpile on this guy and not give him his fair shake. But I honestly wish he was in sessions with me. That's what I wish. I wish I could have this guy with me, every week, every other week, and we could work on what he's going through. He's overwhelmed, and he has a right to be overwhelmed. He does not have a right to give his son up for adoption. He doesn't have a right, right? So if he sat his wife down, this post is written, am I the a-hole for wanting to break up with my husband after he called our autistic son a burden and said he wants to give him up for adoption? Okay. Let's look at that statement. Is your autistic son a burden? Yes. A normal, healthy baby is a burden, right? They cry, they poop, they cost money. It's a burden, but it's a burden, like having a home is a burden. Having a car is a burden. You need insurance. You got to fill it with gas. You got to get maintenance. But it's worth it, right? Children are a burden. They're a wonderful, amazing, uplifting burden, right? A wife is a burden, right? My wife, I'm a burden. I can be a jerk. I can have problems, but I hope that my wife looks at me as a wonderful burden, right? And a spouse is a partner in a lot of ways, so hopefully not always a burden, but my kids can't cook us dinner, right? They can't, all of them, get themselves up for bed, right? They can't do their own laundry effectively. The oldest one's getting there, but there is a burden to this. So your son is a burden? Yeah, yes, he is. He is. My kids are burdens. My wife's a burden. I'm a burden. My car's a burden. My house is a burden, right? Even my computer is a burden because it needs updates and it takes electricity and I have to pay for the internet, right? So yes, like literally there's a burden there. It's burdensome. It's okay. That's okay. And he wants to give my son for adoption. He doesn't, no, let's clarify want. Is he filing for the paperwork, right? Is he looking at practically taking those steps? No. He has intrusive thoughts and he expressed them to his friends and he has the right to express those thoughts. This post should really read, I eavesdropped on my husband's intrusive thoughts and I'm holding him accountable for them, right? That's really what's going on here. I don't think I'm going to be popular in this post, but if you're out there and you're going through something overwhelming and you're thinking of quitting, you're thinking of giving up, you're thinking of and people around you are telling you can't say that, you can't express it, and you just push it down, that can lead to horrible, horrible, horrible things. So if you want to meet with me, you have a right to express those things to me, and I'm not going to tell you to do them, right? I'm not going to push you off the cliff. I feel like jumping off a cliff. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. That sounds great, right? If you feel like jumping, we're going to look at that feeling, we're going to process it, and we're going to get through it, okay? So, I love it. This seems good already. Caregiver burnout is a real thing. Take advantage of babysitters and respite care. Remember, you are more than just a pair of parents that can act that way. With the emotional pressure cooker cooled down, he will likely re-engage with your son. I didn't have hope in the comments, but this is a good take. This is a good take, right? Get some caregivers, get some help, breathe. So divorcing your husband is not going to make your autistic son's life easier. That's taking a little spark of a red flag and hoping that it ignites. That's what you're doing. You heard an intrusive thought and you're like, do that intrusive thought, do it, right? That'd be like if I'm with my wife is amazing, she's beautiful, but I see a younger, I'm going to get myself in trouble here, but I see a younger, more attractive woman out there. My wife is so secure. She does not need to feel like she's the most attractive woman in the world, right? But she's one, and that's the beauty she brings to me. But let's say this girl is younger, prettier, whatever, tighter, more athletic, whatever, and I see her, and I have the intrusive thought of, wow, she looks great. Imagine if my thought was just broadcasted, and she was like, well, do it then, leave me and go marry her, right? That's not good, right? So hopefully I can control those lustful thoughts and not be having that wandering eye, right? And I get that under control. But just because I have the wandering thought doesn't mean my wife should be like, well, then leave me and go marry her. It's not what we want to do. So, caregiver burnout. Heck yeah. A lot of comments on this one. Let's look for the next comment. Hey, these are good comments. Fact, children are a burden regardless of abilities. Heck yeah, they are, but we love them, right? Some will require much more attention and sacrifice than others. Children are already a handful. Very true. So it's normal your husband is feeling overwhelmed because, by your own admission, your son does need more understanding and patience. Heck yeah, very true. The husband is allowed his feelings. We can't always control the way we feel about things. Just because he feels a certain way doesn't mean he doesn't love you or your son. Going to therapy is exactly that. These are great comments. I did not have hope for Reddit, but they're coming through here. Speaking out your mind, free of judgment, venting, and finding a way to deal with your emotions in a healthy way. Boom. Yes. You both need couples therapy. Yeah. I prefer that each get individual therapy and then a little bit of couples therapy would good. But what people do because they can't afford it is they'll just hire couples therapy. And that's not gonna be great for both of you. You both need individual therapy, and then a little bit of couples therapy would be good, because your problem really isn't a couple problem. It's not a couples issue. You're overwhelmed. He's overwhelmed. You have to deal with your feelings. He has to deal with his feelings, and then together you need a little bit of help dealing with that. Just because he feels a certain way doesn't mean he doesn't love you. Okay, good. Speaking out your mind. You both need couples therapy and a reliable child care provider. That is very true. Yes. To help manage the extra responsibilities that come with your son. Instead of judging your husband because he feels a certain way and doesn't mirror your own feelings or way of thinking, try to understand where he's coming from and help each other navigate the situation. Not the a-hole. You both just need help. Yes. Yep. Yeah. So these are good. We're going to end on a high note because this has been a longer episode unintentionally. It was just a longer post, but yeah. Give yourself, guys, if you're out there and you're struggling, you're overwhelmed, you're feeling thoughts that, let's be honest, are ugly and thoughts you wouldn't want anyone to know, feel free to schedule a session with me on sidebysideaz.com. Let's talk about those feelings. Let's work through them. We can see if we're a good fit. If we're not, I have no problem referring you to someone else, but definitely get some help for these. Find a safe place, build a community of trusted peers and allies, people who you can express things to and are going to encourage you in healthy thoughts, not bad friends who are like, yeah, do it, like leave your kid and family, right? But hopefully people who will kick your butt in a good, healthy way saying, dig deep, you got this, push on, right? So that's been this one. This one was a little bit more of a serious one, but I guess they're all kind of serious. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.